What's going on, Rewinders? It is my friend at Nate NFL and I back today, and we're doing a tier list. We're doing a 2020 and 2021 prospect tier list. We're excited to bring you this because, a lot of injuries, a lot of things have happened, a lot of players have broken out, and we're going to talk about that. So we're going to go right into our tier list. We have it on tiermaker.com, great site for everything tiers. And our first player, Nate, let's start off with someone a little controversial. And that's Brandon Ayuk. What are we doing with Brandon Ayuk? Is he still a rising star, or is he now just a starter or a flex player?
Yeah, so right now I have Brandon Ayuk in my tier list as a rising star. I still think that this guy has it in him. I've been watching some of the film of the NFL season so far. He's put in 100% effort out there the last 2 or 3 weeks. He's out there doing well on run blocks. He's making players, the defenders miss. He's getting wide open. It's about to happen. Also, Debo's got a calf injury. Hey, Kyle Shanahan said that he's fine, but if there's anything we know, the 49ers are never fine with injuries.
Yes, this is true. And moving on to the next 49er on this list, it's going to be Eli Mitchell, the guy who Ayuk sprung free for a touchdown with his run blocking. Eli Mitchell, for me, I'm going to rank him as a starter. I'm not going to have him as a rising star because I don't trust 49ers running backs. I think he is a very good player. I think he's a very good outside zone runner, but I think that's what he should be used as. I think that he's a starter for fantasy purposes, but not a rising star for fantasy purposes.
Yep.
So that's why I put him as a starter and not a rising star. He's a great player doing a lot of production right now, but I don't know how long that's going to keep up and if they're going to add someone. Moving on to the next one. Who do you want to talk about next, Nate? Anybody that's not on here, I'll throw them up here for you.
Yeah, so I want to go ahead and say that I saw the DLF had the new ADP out for Dynasty for halfway through the season. It's always interesting to see what this halfway through the season ADP is. And you know who was at number 1? Jamar Chase.
Yes, sir.
So he's obviously got to be an elite talent here. Apparently the Dynasty wide receiver 1 at this point. Hey, there's a good argument to be made for that. Some might think it's Justin Jefferson. Some other people might have A.J. Brown or DK Metcalf. There's a whole bunch of guys you can argue. But at the end of the day, it's just there's a top tier of wide receivers, and he is absolutely in it only 7-8 games into his career.
All I feel when the Cincinnati Bengals are playing is sleeper updates, buzzing my phone. Jamar Chase, 50-yard completion. Jamar Chase, 75-yard touchdown. Yep. Oh, my God, dude. The Burrow connection is real. Jamar Chase is elite, and his teammate from last LSU is also elite, not a rising star. He's Justin Jefferson, the other elite wide receiver. What is he, 21, 22 years old in the NFL, 1,400 yards his rookie season. You just can't teach that kind of skill. Do you want to do one more elite player? Another wide receiver?
I would love to.
CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb's my other elite wide receiver from this list. Looking at the other names, there could be some cases made for some players, but I put them in the rising star categories. I think that CeeDee Lamb's the last elite wide receiver. I think that he's the wide receiver 1 on the Cowboys, and he's been showing up this year. What are your thoughts on CeeDee?
When I did this tier list, when you came up with the idea, I had 3 wide receivers in the elite tier, and those are those 3. I think after those 3, it's a bit of a gap to the next guys.
If you want to move on to some other players that are controversial, we could get into Antonio Gibson.
Oh, okay, let's go.
So this is my guy. I love Antonio Gibson. I was all over him last year. And I had so many shares. But you know what I did recently? I sold a lot of them before the season. There was a lot of hype calling him the Christian McCaffrey of the class. And that's something that, I'll go along with it because I think it's funny. But, it's not something I believe in. Antonio Gibson, I have him as a starter. He's a very good, talented player. But I don't think he's going to be that guy who's going to get you 20-plus points a game in fantasy football.
I agree with this. Before the season, you probably would have said rising star. But he hasn't really taken off the way we wanted him to. So seems like a starter right now.
Let's get on to an injured player who I have as a rising star. And you might like this one, Nate. If you can see his face climbing into the sheet. Woo-wee. J.K. Dobbins. Nate, can you talk about it for me?
J.K. Dobbins, man, the fact that he's probably one of the most efficient running backs just as a prospect and as a running back, plus on one of the most efficient offenses. He doesn't need Derrick Henry kind of volume to be a top tier running back for fantasy football. Once he comes back, as long as he comes back healthy, which I believe he will, that injury, people are coming back from all the time now. The Ravens offense, we see how much they miss a guy like J.K. Dobbins. The run game is just non-existent now with the has-beens they have there now. Dobbins, I could see him having a Dalvin Cook career still, coming back from the injury and just dominating with that team. Gus Edwards is going to be another year older and be coming back from injury as well. So, Dobbins might end up getting the lion's share of carries next year with that Ravens team. And hey, I want any player that's connected to Lamar Jackson.
J.K. Dobbins is that guy that I'm targeting in my rebuild teams because he's going to be back next year, and he's basically a first-round pick if you buy him. He's a first-round pick because he's not playing this year. He'll play next year. He'll be back healthy, and he's tied to Lamar Jackson. I mean, that's all you really want. Moving on to the next running back who's tied to an elite quarterback, CEH. I have him as a flex player. Do you have him as a starter?
I have him as a starter.
We can put him as a starter.
I still believe in CEH, but I'll tell you the truth. I am starting to kind of fall off the wagon here with CEH. I need to see it, and I'm not sure if it's just the talent, if it's the usage, a little bit of both. But, fantasy purposes, it's just not really coming together. And now we have the injury. We'll see if he can come back from that. The whole Chiefs offense seems to be a wreck. So I'm willing to keep him in my starter tier for the time being, but honestly, he's pretty close to falling down into the flex.
I like that spot for him too. I had him between starter and flex. I was more leaning flex because, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, when he's been healthy this year, he wasn't really producing as much until Andy Reid is like, hey, let's start using you more. Moving on to the next 2020 running back, we're going to put in James Robinson. And, this is a guy who I have in my elite tier.
All right.
You know why? He's just so productive. He was RB1 last year. He can be an RB1 this year if he continues on the pace that he's at. That's 2 years of RB1 production in his first 2 years in the NFL. Travis Etienne's behind him, but this is his second year. He's an undrafted free agent, so isn't it 2 years for undrafted free agents before they're done with their contract? So
it depends. It depends on the contract. It could be a 2 or 3 year contract. I think he's got a 3-year one.
Okay, so he could have another year with Travis Etienne, but I think that he's just that good of a runner.
Oh yeah, I mean he's one of the most efficient running backs out there. I have him a rising star tier just because I'm a little scared about the outlook. He's obviously productive when he's on the field, but I'm a little worried about the Jaguars' offense as a whole, as well as Travis Etienne coming next year. But I have no problem with it being in the elite tier. If you're a contender, get out there and grab James Robinson, because even if he ends up being like an RB2 or RB3 next year, splitting carries with Etienne, the production is going to give you this year, and the efficiency for the next couple of years is going to be great.
I guess if we're trying to say this is like a window, I'd put him in elite. But if this is like long-term dynasty for a rebuild, I'd probably put him in starter tier. James Robinson, if you're a contender right now, he's an elite asset on your team. So that's where I put him as elite. So but moving on, he could have easily dropped down. So maybe rising star is right for James Robinson. I'm going to move him down to rising star for now. I think elite is a little too generous. So
I think an elite player is like a cornerstone player for your team, a player that you can rely on, not just for today for production, but also for, the next 2 or 3, 4 or 5 years. That's why that guy is also in the elite tier.
Yep. He's my guy. 90% ownership on fantasy football, DeAndre Swift. I don't know why I did that, but it worked out. He's a receiving back, man. This is a PPR god. He's just going to get 7 to 9 targets a game, screen passes, out routes, anything that can get him open in space, they're going to use. So I like DeAndre Swift. I like what Dan Campbell's doing with him. I do think that Jamal Williams makes him a little more effective. I think it's a weird combo, but I think having that running back with him makes him a more effective runner, similar to
it's the whole Alvin Kamara. Ingram thing going on.
Yeah, they have the Thunder and Lightning, and I think that works really well with Jamal Williams. We saw the Eagles game without Jamal Williams. They were just trying to force Swift up the middle. It didn't work. So Swift is elite tier for me. He's got many, many elite traits from what I scouted from when he was coming out of Georgia. Good speed, top-end speed, just an elite player. And moving on to my next elite player, and it's going to be Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor's also elite. This is the RB1.
Yep.
And this is the other RB1. I have him as RB1A, 1B for me right now. I can't decide which one I like more. That's my homerism coming into play there. But, Jonathan Taylor's just been ripping it up these last couple weeks. What has have you played against him in any fantasy leagues recently, Nate?
I don't think I have, but I do have him in, I think, 2 of my leagues. And, man, I'm just loving it. I'm just loving the production he's giving me. And he's a guy that, and I think he's the 101 right now in like a 1 quarterback startup. I know some people are saying, oh, we're team wide receiver for like your first round draft pick. But the production and the ability that Jonathan Taylor has is just it's that top tier. He's that Zeke Elliott. He's that CMC level of talent, and we're going to get another 4 or 5 years out of him of elite production. So I think with the positional advantage he gives you at running back, he's got to be the 101.
And then also a running back that you can't pass up their production, Nashi Harris in the elite tier. I'm going to put him in the elite tier right away.
There's a lot of elite players in these 2 draft classes,
Yeah, that's why I wanted to do this tier list because, I just wanted to see how it shook out. I figured there would be like 6 to 8 elite tier players, and we're at 6 right now. Let's add one more into the elite tier. Is this guy going to go into the elite tier for you?
Oh, yeah.
I think that's probably our elite tier right there,
Yep.
these 7 players. The rest are going to go into Rising Star, Starter, Flex, and Depth. We just wanted to get the top players done first. Moving on to our Rising Star tier. This is a guy that I want to talk about, and Bob Ban has been talking about a lot. Michael Carter is going to be a rising star for me, man.
Okay.
He's just been insane in PPR leagues. His receptions, I can't get the advanced stats up on me right now, but he's just been averaging touchdowns in all his last couple of games. He's going to be the running back there to own for this year. For the next year, they're going to add a guy probably, but he's going to be that change of pace back, and he's going to get that those receptions. He's good for PPR leagues. I think he's that guy you want on your team right now. Michael Carter is winning people leagues right now. He won me a couple games this last week. I love you, Michael Carter. That's all I got to say about you.
I will say Michael Carter was my RB3 in this draft class over Javonte Williams.
Wow.
Who, speaking of, where do you have Javonte Williams?
I also have him in the rising star category. His breaking tackle ability is just insane. This is a guy that could end up like Antonio Gibson in the starting category if Melvin Gordon just continues to play for another year. But I think Melvin Gordon's done after this year. They're going to switch to Javonte Williams. If you look at the snap percentages between DeAndre Swift and Javonte Williams, they're very similar. DeAndre Swift had to deal with Adrian Peterson, and then Javonte Williams has to deal with Melvin Gordon. So it's a very similar situation. I think Javonte Williams is going to end up breaking out next year. So that's why he's in my rising star category. What do you have on Javonte? He was your RB4.
He was my RB4, and that's not a bad thing at all. I had a top 4 in this class. Those guys were above everybody else by a pretty good gap. So I'm still all about Javonte. I think anyone who's growing impatient, you got to take advantage of that because we're going to see it happen here soon. Melvin Gordon, even if he finishes the rest of the year, splitting pretty 50-50, I don't think Melvin Gordon's back next year. His contract's up. I don't see him spending money on him to bring him back. Javonte Williams is going to have the full role next year, and he can do everything.
He was drafted to be a starting back, and he's not being used as one. I think that Vic Fangio is not going to last long with the Denver Broncos, and whoever's going to step in, maybe Kellen Moore, will have a really good offensive scheme for Javonte Williams. So,
can I give you some wide receivers for the rising star tier?
Please.
Let me give you 3 wide receivers from last year's draft class. I got Jerry Jeudy as a rising star. I have T. Higgins as a rising star. And I got Michael Pittman as a rising star.
I love that.
Michael Pittman. I was saying weeks ago, Michael Pittman was a huge dynasty buy because he was getting the targets. He was getting the routes run. He was getting a huge share of that offense, but the offense just wasn't efficient because Carson Wentz didn't have a preseason. He was injured. Now he's out there. They got a connection going on. Who cares if T.Y. Hilton's there, Paris Campbell, or Zach Pascal? Is Michael Pittman and Jonathan Taylor on that offense, and Michael Pittman right now is becoming that wide receiver 1 for the Colts team. I think there's still a buy window open because he's only going to get better from here on out. I'm not sure if he's ever going to reach that elite tier, but I think he will always be a very solid wide receiver with that Colts team.
But moving on to some 2021 wide receivers that I want to put in the rising star category. Yep. Rashadi B.
Oh yeah,
Rashadi B. There, he's a great route runner. He's getting the targets. He's coming back from injury, and he's going to be a guy that I think is going to be an elite tier player in a year or two. So, and then another guy from 2021 that I want to put in rising star, Cadarius Tony.
Okay,
I'm putting him in rising star. I think that he has got insane change of direction. His ability to juke people, make people miss. They're grabbing that air when they're trying to tackle Cadarius Tony, and it's nice. His first game, he had 180 yards the first time Giants done that since Odell or
10
something.
receptions, something like that. Ridiculous.
This is a guy who's very volatile, just like his draft stock is very volatile. So, injuries could play an issue in here. He's been a little banged up. Moving on to my next one from the class of 2021 that I want to put into Rising Star, Mr. Jalen Waddle.
Oh, yeah.
I think that he has a very good chance to end up in the elite tier as well. He's showing up with Tua. He's really good at slants, just insane at slants.
I am very surprised in his usage, but I love it. I mean, he's at the last couple games, he's seeing like 10, 12 targets a game. I love that for him. He's not even being used as a deep threat yet. And, eventually we're going to see, all those slants and screens combined with the deep threat, and he's going to have those big plays. Starting to think that Jalen Waddle is only a couple plays away from joining that elite tier.
Similar to this guy who got hyped up, who I'm going to move down to starter, is Chase Claypool. I think that he was a rising star last year, but this year he's cooled off. He's going into a team with a rebuild. So, he could get some stats in garbage time in the couple coming years, but I like Chase Claypool, but I don't think that team's going to be that good.
Yeah, I don't think
they
he
have
took that
Nashi,
big step we were hoping for him to take. So
another guy that didn't take that big step that we were hoping for him to take was Bryan Edwards. Bryan Edwards has not taken that step yet. I'm going to put him in flex for now. He could easily jump into Rising Star with, what happened.
A couple big games.
Sadly. So, he just needs a couple big games. He's going to be the wide receiver 1 there most likely. So he could easily move up to starter with the next game. And, but I'm going to put him in flex for now just because he hasn't been doing much this year.
Yeah, I will say we're missing one player in the Rising Star tier.
Throw him in there for me.
Devonta Smith. I still believe in the talent. I know the Eagles the Eagles are a dumpster fire right now, man. I'm not trying to say that offense is really great right now for fantasy football, unless you're just looking at Jalen Hurts garbage time. But Devonta Smith is, I mean, hey, that run game somehow took off. But Devonta Smith, I believe in the talent. The talent is there. Just need someone better throwing him the ball, man. I think he's a great buy low right now because people are like, he's not gonna be up on that tier with those other guys. But Devonta Smith.
Did you see the rumors,
all the
Nate?
time. What?
You see the rumors that Russell Wilson, Philadelphia is going to full court press Russell Wilson?
I did see that. That
could be a nice fit.
Wheels up.
Yes, for Devonta. Talking about wheels up, we're going to talk about Elijah Moore, who had wheels up this offseason. I'm putting him in my starter core. I think that he just had a nice game with Mike White. That's going to move him up to starter from flex for me. He's a guy that's not going to produce. You don't want him in your starting lineup this year. That's all I have to say about him. But he's some guy that I'm going to put in a starter because I think he's going to be in that tier.
I think I can say this. Yeah, I mean, it's a guy that's not producing super heavily right now, but you still have, a good outlook for. And, for better or worse, I have a similar guy who's kind of not producing at the level I want him to right now, but I still believe in the talent. That's Laviska Shenault. So I'm going to have him as a starter right now. It breaks my heart to not have him in the Rising Star tier, but just need to see something better out of that Jaguars offense and with his usage. I'm not a fan of Urban Meyer right now.
Where would you put Cam Akers on this list?
Yeah, so, that was a tough one. I did end up putting Cam Akers in the starter tier because of the injury and the fact that at the end of the day, I was never a huge Cam Akers fan. And now with the injury, with Darrell Henderson actually looking pretty good this year, even if Cam Akers comes back, just about 100%. He's never going to be the workhorse for the Rams unless Henderson gets injured. I think it'll be a running back by committee between the two. They can have a great efficiency with the both of them, but I don't think he's going to be able to join that elite tier with the current situation he's in. So at best, I think he can kind of jump up into the Rising Star if he's really efficient, but I think right now he's more of a starter for me.
Yeah, a little late addition to our Rising Star category for me. And he's been just showing up this year. Van Jefferson.
Ooh.
This dude can play.
How much did Porkman pay you for that?
A lot. But, this guy can actually play. He just burns people. He's got speed. Stafford seems to like him. This is a guy that I think in the next couple of years is going to be one of the wide receiver 1 or 2s in this offense. He's a wide receiver 3 right now. He just got Deshaun Jackson cut. So, he's going to be the rising star for me because this is a 3 wide receiver set offense. He's going to be playing a lot.
That's it for the
Do you want to talk about Khalil Herbert?
Do you
want to talk about Khalil Herbert?
The thing is, I don't know what his outlook is. Once David Montgomery comes back, obviously he's got, another game or two before that happens. And I do think he's got some decent talent to him. Long term, I'm not really on board the whole Khalil Herbert is going to take over and be the workhorse next year if David Montgomery leaves. I have him actually right now as kind of a role player. It's like a flex. He's kind of in between a flex and a bench player for me, just because once David Montgomery comes back, I don't think Herbert's a flex player in your starting lineup. I mean, maybe he has some upside going forward, but it's a little bit too murky for me to really commit to him just yet.
Yep. Now that we're getting down to the depth tier, we can actually start showing it. He's right between depth and flex for me too. I'm going to put him in flex because he's been good in the times that he's played. I know that one of the announcers on the Bears game said that he looked like Dalvin Cook, and I thought that was kind of funny. Chuba Hubbard, another player that I'm putting in the flex tier.
Yep.
Another player I'm putting in the flex tier, Kenneth Gainwell. No, he's depth.
Yeah.
Depth tier for me.
Until we get someone better out of that Eagles offense and he has less competition for snaps, he's got to be a depth piece for me. Yeah.
Going into the another player in the flex tier, Ramondre Stevenson. He's a player that when he's in the lineup, though, he's a flex player for me. So that's the thing. He's got to be in the
scratch,
lineup.
Man. He's got a healthy scratch. He's inactive sometimes.
Okay.
I get
that.
The best ability is availability, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's why I'm going to put Trey Sermon in the depth too.
Yeah. I mean, hey, if you asked me a couple weeks ago, I would have said a starter, but now it's like, he's barely getting any snaps.
What about Zack Moss? Is he a flex or a depth for you?
I have Zack Moss as a starter because over the past couple games, he's gotten the majority of the snaps. He's getting the red zone looks. He's starting to get receptions too. I've seen some stuff for the past couple games that it's really starting to look like a Zack Moss backfield with Singletary being the complimentary running back. Now, even as the starter for the Bills, there's not enough volume there to be like in that ever like elite tier or maybe even that rising star tier. But I think Zack Moss as your RB2 on a pretty solid team or an RB3 as you're in your flex, I think he's a very solid player right now with a good floor and with a lot of touchdown upside. So I'm on the Zack Moss train now.
Moving up, another starter for me in running back, I'm going to put Travis Etienne in starter.
Yep.
He was drafted to be a wide receiver, basically. And I don't like that. I don't like that fit. I think that the Jaguars should have just taken Rondell Moore, which I was mocking them the whole offseason.
Same.
That fit just makes so much more sense. Jamal Agnew is not a wide receiver. Okay, he is a wide receiver, but, he was a cornerback first. So they had to switch a cornerback to wide receiver, and he's a wide receiver one now.
Agnew is more of a punt returner than anything else.
So I'm just going to put Travis Etienne in starter tier for now. I don't mess with Liz Fox injuries, so depth player. Is this okay for you? Jalen Reagor? Yeah.
Yeah, at best.
Another depth player for me. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Going to put him there.
Actually, I'm starting to think Amon-Ra St. Brown might be a flex. I think, he hasn't had any big games, but he's getting some targets. He's got some upside. There's no one else there for the future. Amon-Ra St. Brown is, as of right now, if I had to project a wide receiver one for next year, I'm sure they're going to draft somebody or bring someone through free agency, but he's the best thing they got right there going forward. So he's kind of in between that flex depth.
He's the best of the rest in that offense right now, but he's a depth for me just because, like you said, I think they're going to add some wide receivers. Yep. I think that Jared Goff is also a terrible quarterback. I'm going to say that live on a video. I think he's awful. Goffle. So
awful.
I think that with another year at Goff, I'm going to put him in depth. So moving on to my next flex player, Nico Collins, baby.
Ooh, love that.
He's going in my flex. He's a wide receiver 2 right now. He's running a lot of routes, getting a lot of snaps. He had a pretty good game last week too, if I remember correctly, like 3 receptions for 70-something yards. So a pretty good game from Nico.
He's not far away from being a starter. I just needs a quarterback upgrade, or if Davis Mills hasn't been terrible. I've actually been pretty impressed with Davis Mills so far. Being thrown into that dumpster fire of a team, he's actually looked pretty good. He's definitely exceeded expectations so far. So Nico, I like Nico's upside in the future.
Yeah, he could easily turn into a rising star for me, just based on that athletic profile. Oh man, that's a nasty profile. And speak about athletic profiles, a guy that I'm going to put in the start, another guy that I'm putting in the flex tier that can move up to starter tier, Rondell Moore.
Yep.
He's too inconsistent right now to start. He's a good flex though. He for bye weeks if you need him, play him against teams that score a lot of points because that's when the Cardinals use him. Also,
AJ Green on the COVID list. So Rondell Moore. having a bit more upside this week and possibly next week. Also, this past week, Rondell Moore ran more routes than Christian Kirk. So got some upside there that we're starting to see him get a bit more usage. And with Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins being a little hurt, we might see, a bit more manufactured touches from Rondell going forward. As Cliff Kingsbury tries to figure out how to make that offense work with, all the injuries and random things going on.
Yeah. So are we going to put Darnell Mooney in flex or starter?
I'm going to have to put him. He's really in between the two for me.
Same.
The Bears offense just isn't good right now. I mean, I believe in Justin Fields though. So I think that Darnell Mooney will be a starter, but as of right now, he's probably more of a flex. So it just kind of depends on if you want to talk about, if you're a contender or a rebuild. If you're in a rebuild, he's definitely a starter with the upside of a rising star. If you're, looking to win games right now, he's more of a flex.
I'm just going to put him in starter right now because he is that wide receiver 1 in the Bears offense for some reason, not Allen Robinson.
Crazy.
So, I mean, Justin Fields just likes to look his way, so that's why I'm going to put him there. He could easily have a good game. But yeah, flex makes more sense for him, but just in the long-term picture, I'm just going to put Darnell Mooney as a starter. Long-term picture for Terrace Marshall Jr. Are we going to put him as a flex?
Yeah. I'm having him as a flex. That quarterback situation is terrible right now. Robbie Anderson is dead man walking, it seems like. So Terrace Marshall, I know he hasn't produced yet, but I am all about his future. I think he's an incredible wide receiver who was underrated. And I think this is the best time to buy him because I think it's going to be only up from here. He's coming back from an injury. The Panthers offense might not get it together this year, but he's going to make some plays at the end of the year that's going to have him be, possibly like the Michael Pittman of this coming offseason where, we saw Michael Pittman produce at the end of the year last year and some of us bought right then. And we're seeing the results now. I think Terrace Marshall is going to be the same way.
Moving to tight ends, we have Pat Freiermuth and Cole Kmet. Freiermuth for me is borderline rising star.
Ooh.
But that offense next year is going to make him just a starter for me. I think that he is a starting tight end right now. He's tight end 12 or tight end? He's the top tight end right now in the league. So he's a starter. Like if you have him, you're starting him most likely because you probably don't have a better option unless you have Waller, Hawkinson, Pitts, or Kelsey. So
Andrews.
Next one.
Andrews.
Yes, Andrews. I have him in so many leagues too, just because of the Ravens connection. I love the Ravens offense.
Mm-hmm.
Cole Kmet for me, he's gonna be depth. He's a guy that you're putting, you're just putting on your lineup.
It's the same situation as the Darnell Mooney situation. I think Cole Kmet could become a flex. He could become a top 12 tight end, which isn't saying a huge amount because it's kind of easy to be a top 12 tight end these days.
Yeah.
But I think the last game he was second in targets above Allen Robinson before Darnell Mooney, after Darnell Mooney. So he's getting the usage, but the offense overall is just not good. It's just not there. Jimmy Graham's not played at all. So Cole Kmet's definitely the tight end 1 there, but just the efficiency and the volume is not there. So he's a depth piece for right now, but I think there's a lot of upside for him there. I don't think he'll ever be a Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews kind of player, but I don't see why he couldn't, sit in that tight end 8 to tight end, 14. So a low tight end 1, high tight end 2, which, I mean, hey, I'm not out there trying to acquire guys like that unless I can get them for a good value because there's a lot of guys that can fit in that range.
But that's why I have him as depth because when I have Cole Kmet on a lot of lineups, but he's not starting. He's going to stay on my bench until he starts to break out, probably his 3rd year. Yeah, that's it for our tier list, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you, Nate, for joining me today. I really appreciate you coming on. But yeah, we had a great time ranking these players. Let me know who was too high. Let me know if Van Jefferson was too high. Thank you, guys, and have a good one.